Oh, it's recording.
Never been a part of something obviously anywhere near this traumatic. And so I'm hearing the gunfire in the hallway, and I'm thinking in my mind, I'm in the first classroom. Why isn't he coming? You know, I'm thinking we're next, and you know, and in my mind I'm thinking, you know, as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, what are your thoughts? What are your, you know, and I'm thinking that I have to almost be their parent. Like I have to tell them, you know. So I said to them, I said, I need you to know that I love you all very much, and that it's going to be okay, because I thought that was the last thing they were ever going to hear. I thought we were all going to die. You know, and I don't know if that's okay, you know, teachers, and, you know, but I wanted them to know someone loved them, and I wanted that to be one of the last things they heard. Not the gunfire in the hallway. It's so horrible. So horrible. Horrible.
How did you know you were going to be okay? What
I
happened?
didn't. What finally happened was the gunfire stopped. The gunfire wasn't that long, so that stopped, but I said, no, we're not going anywhere. We're staying here until someone good comes to, gets us out. So eventually what happened was the police came and started knocking, and obviously...
Ian Sargent. Michael Cervola.
My name is Michael Cervola, Deerfield Beach, and I've spoken, this is the third time. Last time I was here, I was rather confrontational, although I used my best low tone, and it didn't come across the way I expected. I challenged you to use the word emergency in order to empower you to action, so you could take action that apparently you thought you couldn't before. I'm not going to ask you to use the word emergency today. I don't believe it's necessary. I am here to communicate that we can know how many kids were bullied, not in 2011 or 2012, not statistically, but how many kids in individual schools, for example, Deerfield Beach Middle, or pick a school, we can know how many were bullied last week and compare it to this week. And then next week, we can say, oh look, there's 10 more kids being bullied this week, or 10 more kids that say that they're considering suicide or something of that nature, and we can address it. Okay, we do not have that capability now, and that is what I'm talking about. And it's very simple to accomplish. I did bring some signs, which you were very graciously allowing, which is this. I can hold it up. I also want to add, even though I limited myself to 2 signs, I don't think anyone will complain. And I did agree not to walk with these in front of any schools, because I don't want to be divisive. We're all on the same side in this. I think there can be no doubt as to that. Okay, this is a powerful tool that will provide numbers. No one need be afraid of numbers. No one will be held accountable or liable if you discover that 8 out of 10 kids are in crisis, or 6 out of 10, or 4 out of 10. The national numbers, although everyone agrees they're wrong, is 1 out of 5 are in serious crisis or have been victimized. I've never heard anyone say that that number's low. Okay, please take out a penny, toss it. Let me ask you a personal question. If the answer, if it's heads, you say yes. I can ask you all if you're gay, okay? Flip the coin. You'll say yes or no. I won't know whether you're responding to the head on the coin or to the truth. But when I take all of you together, if there's 100 of you, I know that 50% should have said yes or no based on the flip of the coin. So it's very easy for me to then come back to you and say, hey, guess what? 20% of the people on this board are gay, but none of you are marked out, okay? We can ask children personal questions without any intrusion of rights. And by the way, we speak a lot about adult rights. I never hear anyone talk about the rights of children to be safe. They're little people, okay, but they are not adults. They should never be put in jail. If you want to put kids in jail, then write it into the law. Say, we want to put kids in jail at 17, or 16, or 15, or 14, or 13, or 12, or 11. They cannot clamp shut on being children just because we call them students or because they step over a line. I believe I may have exceeded my time. The clock is doing strange things, but
Yes, if you could wrap up, Mr. Cibola, please.
You know, because of what has just happened, I think I pretty much thank you for the signs because I talk too much. But I did want to say one more thing in regard to what just happened, and I will use this time, I apologize for this, but that teacher who was a hero, her heroism had to shine through the system which you represent. Not that you're bad, but the system, okay, forced her mind to make an excuse. When I heard the interview, her first thought was to apologize to you, to the things you represent. She apologized. She said, this is a quote, "I know I shouldn't have said I love the children." She not only apologized for that, but she went on to explain that the reason was because she thought it would be the last thing they ever heard. What type of system is it that a teacher feels she has to make an explanation in the first place or apologize? And that also means, by the way, as it happened, as that person was there, her brain had to actually process, and part of her brain was saying, oh, this is something you shouldn't say. Another part had to say, countermand that and say, oh no, it's a man outside with a gun, go ahead and say it. That fraction of a second, we are all accountable for. Her brain, that blood shouldn't have been flowing to that part of her brain. There should be no part of anyone's brain that says, I can't tell a first grader that I love them. Teachers do not appreciate, because we have not instructed them properly as to what the real job is there. It's not to get good grades. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate the time. I went way over. Thank you. This woman has something
Juliet
to
Hicks.
say. Please listen.
Mr. Runcie and the school board members, I am so confused. One, let me remind you of the case that was filed against me. The student was 18 years old. Her parents had cyberbullied her about her sexual orientation publicly on Twitter. And after I properly reported the incidents as required by law and Broward School's policy, I was charged with professional misconduct for possibly contributing to that student's homosexuality. This case got investigated. Ridiculous. I don't understand. Someone please explain to me how a teacher at Cypress Bay is allowed to sleep with an 18-year-old student. It's okay. He still has his job. But I was investigated for contributing to the homosexuality of a student? That's insane. Okay, this is allowed. Someone please needs to explain to me why there is still no investigation into John Marlowe. 9 months ago, I began writing this body. 9 months. I warned you that things would happen at Deerfield. What happened 3 weeks later? A student was sexually assaulted. At what point do you choose to take any action? Recently, I called and requested public information about the SIU cases that had been filed at Deerfield Beach High for the last 5 years. This was supposed to be a matter of public record. David Gold responded with the number of 5 cases over 5 years. I know of more cases than that in 2. So I expressed that. When I questioned it, I got 8 cases on 5 years. I still know of more. And that was in 2 years, not 5. So what I'm now requesting is that parents and teachers have a right to know how many cases have been filed by a principal or a school, cleared, and action taken for each schools. Students, parents, and teachers have a right to protect themselves. This information needs to be posted on the website listed for each school. When are your anti-bullying policies going to mean anything? Because right now they mean nothing. How can you support the lesbian, gay, bi, and transgender students, and this case of mine could even be investigated? It tells me that Broward School is even in a bigger mess than the indictment indicated a few years ago. Everything is just paper until you take some action. I never went even public until student safety was an issue. I wrote several school board members and Mr. Runcie warning them of the unsafe conditions at Deerfield Beach High and expressed my fear that something bad was going to happen. Unfortunately, I had to live with the fact that 3 weeks later a student was sexually assaulted. She was then violated by administration who told her she should get over it because she wasn't raped by a male administrator. The levels of corruption in this district are absurd. If Broward School's police can lie about the number of cases, which is supposed to be a matter of public record, that's the SIU department, then it needs to be dissolved. And Mr. Runcie, if you can't keep your word regarding something as simple as an investigation, then sir, you need to resign. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Mary Fern.
fighters for people that look like you and me, fighters to make sure that our communities are safe worldwide, fighters for standing up for things that are important to us. So we want to welcome them. We want to welcome them with open arms, and we want to welcome them standing up when they come.
You look at me and run
I commend all of you for being here, and everyone is struggling, trying to bring forward a fact. Poverty. No one believes it. A lot of people simply do not believe that kids are hungry or elderly are hungry. I have a solution. Let's ask the kids. Let's ask them, how many kids are hungry? Why not? Why can't we ask our kids in class how many are hungry? Well, because we don't want to single anyone out. So very quickly, anonymous polling. We can anonymously poll our kids every day. It should be a regular part of class. Instead of singling them out, do you or don't you know a question individually, I can ask, how many kids did their homework? And I'll get a response from the class as a percentage poll. It's called anonymous polling. You flip a coin, the kid answers yes if it's heads, and he answers the truth if it's tails. So if I ask you a sensitive question, you might respond yes or no, but I can't tell from your response whether you're responding to the question or whether you're responding to the result of your toss. Now what this means is, and I think this is why it's very important to you, you're trying to light fires under people. People aren't believing you. People have hearts already. We already want to do things. I think it's our eyes that are lacking. Okay, I think when people hear, oh, 1 out of 5 kids are criminally victimized. You talked about people who can't defend themselves. Even an elderly person usually has more wherewithal. They know who to call, or someone to call. They have someone to call. Kids, they have no one. If they're in crisis, the statistics are 1 out of 5 are criminally attacked by 18. Criminally means it's meant the criminal definition. You can be taken to jail for doing something. Now, most of us as parents, we get upset way before it reaches criminality. So if it's 1 out of 5, there was the Million Father March. 200,000 fathers of the Million Father March should be up in arms about the 1 out of 5 statistic. So we hear these statistics and they go in one ear out the other. It's like stepping over dead bodies. We've all seen that black, grainy video of a store being robbed, and this woman is stepping over a dead body to get to her coffee. And we're all looking down on that person. How dare she step over a dying person for a coffee? We do that every time we hear the statistic of 1 in 5 kids abused. And we let it go in one ear and out the other. Same thing with poverty.
We try to put a human face on it. So then it's difficult.
Every morning, it should be a part of class. We talk about inclusion. If I'm overly
Let me jump right quick up. So, are you trying to follow your logic? So kids come in the classroom, every morning you want to ask them if they're hungry. Half the class says yes, then what?
Then I want to look you and their parents in the eye and say, it's not some other kids that are hungry. I want to go to these people here in this room and say, half of your kids are hungry, and I want to jump up and down and scream. I can't scream quite as much because it's like, well, they might be hungry, or it's some other kids, or it's the statistics in a paper. Okay, I think this individualized, I think, could be very powerful.
Got it. Thank you for your comment. We appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Hi there. My name is Justin, and I've been a political and protest.
Tough questions. That is not an excuse. And I'm out of time.
Yes, wrap up, please.
To wrap up, please consider, and perhaps we should have a discussion. We could have a meeting, board meetings, talk with you people, whatever is necessary. One thing I was very encouraged, you are all so motivated, and we're all talking about money. Please don't think about any of these things. It's not an issue of money. It is an issue of acknowledging that there's a problem and then worrying about it. If a child is on fire, and that's what we're talking about, this is literal abuse, and they're on fire now, not next month, not last month, it's not someone else's kids. As we're speaking, out of a 250,000 kids, students, 50 are newly being abused as we're speaking.
To allow one public speaker, and that is Mike Sobola. Mr. Sobola?
Yes, thank you.
Please identify yourself for the record.
Yes, thank you very much on my dad. I apologize for not being able to make it earlier. My name is Mike Serbola. I'm here, about myself, I have taught all grades. I was fortunate enough to be a uncertified teacher. They were desperate. I have a technical background in science and math. The reason I'm here is I went to Deerfield Beach High School as a student, and in Rapid City, where I spent a number of years, Rapid City, unfortunately, was the first community to have a student walk in with a shotgun. And as we all know, our community has had some serious things happen lately as well. In fact, I'm not going to ask you questions. I know you can't answer it, but it is a federal statistic, not mine, it's not my opinion, that 1 out of 5 children before reaching the age of 18 has been exposed to something that has met a degree of criminal prosecutability, not just something that would make a parent upset. And this is our government's federal statistics. These come out every 4 years. They are not mentioned. I do not know why. But here's the deal. There's nobody between those kids and what's happening to them other than you. There's no one who has a hat whose job it is. The people who gather the statistics, our federal government, also gather statistics on how much salad they're eating and a bunch of other things. That's what's published. This statistic has been out there for a decade. I wrote about it 15 years ago. I'm not the only one. I don't want to discuss this statistic. That's not why I'm here. It is 1 out of 5. You can look it up. So whose job is it? You are the only ones who can do anything. Okay? First off, how can you do it? It's not your job. Who's going to let you? And what can be done? Triage. You can find out what the numbers are. For our students, 250,000 students, real numbers. It's called anonymous polling. If it cost $1 million, I could ask you for $1 million and you'd be all impressed and give it to me. It involves a penny. You flip a penny. You ask the students. You tell them. If it's heads, you say yes. If it's tails, you answer the question. I had planned on giving you each a penny and inquiring as to whether your favorite pie was apple or pumpkin. It's a bit complicated because you can't answer, so I'm going to skip ahead. We could still do it. I could ask you to write on a piece of paper. Pick the top or the bottom. I could ask you to do it now if I can't ask you for your permission. But let's say you were to write on a piece of paper. I'd say, okay, pick one. You'd pick the top or the bottom. I'd say, okay, call the top heads, bottoms, tails. Now, if it were children, I can phrase this much more carefully. It's 3 minutes, it's the end of the day. It could be phrased as, and you will spend hours deliberating this. Believe me, the question can be phrased. Has anything happened that you were uncomfortable, that you felt trapped and you couldn't share with an adult? It could be that simple, and you can have an answer that will not upset parents. It won't upset the kids. If I ask, excuse me for pointing, but one of you, whether your favorite pie is apple or whatever, you won't tell me. But I can ask all of you. You'll say heads, heads, tails, tails, heads, 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 tails, tails. None of you will know whose favorite pie or whatever. Okay, so we can ask our children these tough questions.
Okay,
that is not an excuse. I'm out of time.
Yes, wrap up, please.
To wrap up, please consider, and perhaps we should have a discussion. We could have a meeting, board meetings, talk with you people, whatever is necessary. One thing I was very encouraged, you are all so motivated, and we're all talking about money. Please don't think about any of these things. It's not an issue of money. It is an issue of acknowledging that there's a problem and then worrying about it. If a child is on fire, and that's what we're talking about, this is literal abuse, and they're on fire now, not next month, not last month, it's not someone else's kids. As we're speaking, out of our 250,000 kids, students, 50 are newly being abused as we're speaking, and they're on fire, in pain now, this second. So it is not a matter of whose hat is it. The CDC quietly changed the rules on everyone and mentioned, oh, by the way, this is transmittable community-wise, not familially, not within families. But if you're born within a community that starts to exhibit these problems, culturally, our brains respond. I can be raised in a convent. My brain will respond to what your children do. Do you understand this? If you don't, you need to. It is your responsibility. It is not a matter of a child being abused and they'll get over it. It is a physical change. It is not that they are thinking short.
Sir,
They are short. Their legs have been cut off. Sorry. Flip the coin, please. I would love to talk to you at a later point about this. It is very important. All our kids, we can find out now what the real numbers are. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. The business of the school board of Broward County is now complete, and I am adjourning this meeting. Thank you, everyone. A long day.
I feel like it's a good I want to put you on the cause and effect there. I mean, why was it if it was citizen mobilization that pushed this issue, why was leadership moving away from the issue so devastating to citizen mobilization?
I think that citizen mobilization, there are many people who look at gun violence as a distant issue because it's not portrayed accurately. For one thing, we sort of touched upon and passed the suicide issue.
Yeah, let me put that stat up. More deaths this year, we might have more deaths this year for injuries by firearm than motor vehicle accidents. They're very close to each other for the first time. And you wanted to make a really important point about that 32,000, that's a big number, 32,000 people die from firearms.
Okay, so the point that I think most Americans don't know is that year after year, the overwhelming majority of people who die by guns die by suicide. And if you take the statistic of 32,000 people, usually 18,000 people are killing themselves. A lot of these high-profile mass shootings are they're really murder-suicides.
Yeah.
So the other number is the 11,000, which are homicides. That's the number that we always hear about, and that's the number that's always associated with communities of color, and that's the number that most people think about. And then there's a couple of thousand that are unintentional, shootings or police interventions. So I think there's a massive amount of misinformation about how people are dying by guns. And frankly, there's a lot that we can do. Harvard School of Public Health and Bloomberg School down at Johns Hopkins do a lot of work on the public health approach to gun violence, trying to intervene when there are suicide potentials in these groups of people.
And one of the things we know about suicide via firearm is that it's incredibly lethal compared to many other methods which are unsuccessful. And the other thing we know about suicides is that if someone attempts suicide and fails, there's a very, very good chance that could be their only attempt. They're very successful interventions. And so if you do not give people an easy way to end their own life, there's tremendous hope in treating someone who has a problem. If the firearm is near and it's accessible, the odds are extremely high they're going to be successful in taking their own life, and then of course there's no second chance to intervention. We are awaiting a live press conference from the police authority.
The leaders of the school systems are doing everything they can to make sure that the schools in Connecticut are safe.
An argument on the Sunday talk shows was over just how far to go to protect children at schools.
I'm not so sure I wouldn't want one person in a school armed, ready for this kind of thing.
But Randy Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, is uncomfortable with that.
Schools have to be safe sanctuaries. And so we need to actually stop this routine view that just having more guns will actually make people safer.
School safety experts hope the current concerns don't fade with time.
On your life.
That's right. But keep the eye contact on me.
Not on your life.
That's right. And you create that. So when you have a nervous dominant dog and you try to block them, especially the way you have learned to do it, like holding them, you gotta respond back. You don't want her obsessive.
No.
Otherwise, that makes her a very dangerous dog.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you why. Because when an outside dog senses that a dog is nervous, dominant, and obsessive, they become a target. And they know internally that if they are nervous, dominant, and obsessive, they can be attacked. So they anticipate the attack.
Mm-hmm. And that's fearful for her.
Yes, but they have to defend themselves.
Oh, that's what's happening then.
They have to defend themselves before they're being attacked and recognize about the energy that they wear or they use. Because they don't care about them wearing pink, but they do care about what energy they're wearing.
Can Caesar turn this kitten into a pack leader?